I mean, I don't mind having something for my butthole. That may feel nice. And welcome to the Down in Front Podcast, the official podcast of downinfrontpodcast.com. Here, what we do is we review movies, TV, just about anything and everything you can think of that's nerdy. So we're super pumped. We're excited for you. Tonight, we will review in Solo, a Star Wars story. It's going to be directed by Ron Howard, starring Woody Harrelson, Junice Suotamo, Emilia Clarke, Donald Glover, and Alden Ehrenreich. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that correctly. Boom. Killed it. So what we normally do is that we're going to be sitting back, reviewing a movie, reviewing something for you, having a drink, and just talking about what we've been watching before we get into our actual review. So I'm going to toss it over to one of my best friends. I miss him. I love his smell, and I hope that we can hang out more. Mr. Brylan, the Mouth of the South. How's it going, man?
It's going well. How are you doing this evening?
Very well, thank you. The NBA Finals is on, and then Westworld's on after that, so it's going to be a good night. So I'm pretty pumped about that. But what you been watching? What you drinking?
Tonight I'm keeping it safe, so I'm just taking shots of water, good old H2O, out of my big thermos. So water is really good for you and healthy. What I've been watching recently, I decided to tune in and watch the documentary on John McCain on HBO. It's called John McCain, For Whom the Bell Tolls. And this is kind of less of a documentary and more kind of like a living memoriam for him, just because he has brain cancer. There will be probably very soon in time that he passes away. So it's really interesting to see that he and all of his friends got together to make this. And it's kind of weird. People take it different ways. And so there is a bias. I mean, it is all about John McCain and his life. And I found it to be a really interesting character study on him. They definitely go through his career, warts and all, from being a POW in Vietnam to the Keating 5 incident or his runs for president. And I mean, and what's nice is that he's always been like kind of someone that doesn't beat around the bush. So if he messes up, he says, yeah, this is a wrong thing. And I mean, if you're looking back and like your time is up, it's really interesting to see someone just be like, hey, I'm just going to lay it all out there and tell you how I feel about everything. So I found it to be very interesting, and it's really cool to see that he's a really interesting politician, because he's definitely someone that could reach across party lines and bring people together. I mean, his two best friends, Joe Lieberman and Joe Biden, definitely are in this and speak highly of them. And they have former presidents talking about how, even though you may have not liked the opinions of John McCain, that he was always someone that you could talk to and find some type of compromise to get things done. So, and it's always really interesting because he is a military guy that came from a military family, and one of their big things that his father and his grandfather taught him was go with your gut instincts on any decision you make in life. And it's really interesting to see when he gets into politics, even though he tries to stay true to that gut instinct choice, that even with the political machinations that are around him, that sometimes gets compromised as well. Like, he even looks back at running against Obama and says, like, you know what, I should have taken Joe Lieberman as my running mate, even if the Republican National Convention would not accept him. That'd probably be the right thing to do rather than Sarah Palin. Or for the Keating 5, which was a embezzlement issue back in the 70s, that he is like, yeah, I worked with this guy. This guy gave me money for my campaign. Nothing was shady under the table, but it was a bad choice that I made. And it's refreshing to hear this from a politician, that he's not trying to beat around the bush or gloss it over with any language to say it might be or isn't, make it kind of ambiguous, that he's just like straight up like, this was a bad thing I did, this was a good thing I did, and I appreciate it, even if you don't agree with it. So I really enjoyed it. It was a really interesting documentary of him.
Nice. I mean, that sounds like super cool. I'm sure that a lot of people, especially right now, will probably be into that one now. And I think a lot of good, more and more like better content is coming up on HBO now. So, or HBO. So that sounds pretty cool.
Yep.
With we're gonna toss it all the way over to the beautiful state of New York. We have the handsome, the amazing Mocha Mike here with us. Mike, what you drinking and what you been watching?
Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? I'm glad to be here. Keep it pretty simple tonight. What I'm drinking is a nice little beer called National Bohemian. My roommate is from Maryland. Every time he goes back home, he grabs me those beers because they're pretty popular down there. But yeah, it's a good old Natty Boh. That's what I'm slamming down tonight. And as for what I've been watching, I recently watched in theaters the film First Reformed. I'm not sure if any of you guys here have had heard about this movie before it came out. It completely flew under the radar for me. I only found it because I was scrolling through MoviePass to see what movies were out that I could just go see. But it stars Ethan Hawke, and it is about a former soldier who becomes a pastor after losing his son to the Iraq War and his wife leaving him, and who has an encounter with an environmentalist extremist who sort of changes his worldview on what's how somebody in his position, someone within the church, should be treating the world around him. And this sort of spirals into a culmination of his loneliness and depression, meeting with a suddenly lifted veil on the hypocrisy of the church that he works for, and kind of spirals into a pretty dark place. It was a really interesting film. Definitely kind of heady and something worth watching and talking to people about. I'm not going to talk too much about how the movie goes because it's kind of spoilery. But it was very somber and kind of creepy, and gave a really cool insight into what radicalization can look like when it's not just a stereotypical person out in the Middle East in a country being bombed. What are some of the things that can push somebody towards radicalization wherever they are in the world? So yeah, it was an interesting flick, and I'm glad I caught it when I had the chance.
Nice. Yeah, I know I tried to, we had talked about this before, and I tried to actually find that movie here in Boston, but I think only maybe one or two theaters had it. And one of the ones were 3 times, and that was the Boston Common, and they were already not having prime time viewing, so it's kind of a bummer. So
yeah, cool. I mentioned this to you guys before, but one of the big benefits of living in New York City is that when it comes to film, I get access to everything. So it was, I'm looking forward to taking advantage of stuff like MoviePass to see more movies like this that people in little podunk towns like Boston don't get the chance to see.
I'm not laughing. That wasn't funny. Yankees suck.
Whoa, hold on. Let's not get into sports.
It's get personal now.
Yeah. Well, Mocha, it's always to see your beautiful face, and we took a poll again, and you ranked number 2 again. Weird. The most handsome Down in Front podcast member. So good stuff, man. It could have been worse. Yes. I wasn't even on the list. So
second place is the first loser.
Exactly.
Number one.
Somehow Guillermo keeps winning. I'm not sure how. It's weird. Let's toss it over to the guy who's back in Massachusetts, and he shreds your heart to pieces. Mike, the Shredder. How's it going, man? What you been watching? What you drinking?
It's weird because that is going to be the name of my first solo album, Shreds Your Hearts to Pieces, and it's just me playing the guitar for an hour and a half straight with no accompaniment. It's gonna be beautiful.
The album art is just a cheese grater.
When does it stop?
Oh God, why did I start listening to this? No, I'm not doing too bad at all. I haven't really been watching, but more listening to the go between Drake and Pusha T. That has pretty much occupied all of my free time in the recent, days. I would say for visually, appealing to me, Intervention. That I haven't been home honestly in 3 or 4 days at this point, and the only show that I've watched is reruns from 10 years ago of Intervention, and I can safely say that I've seen a whole lot of people do heroin, from that, and needles still not for me. So. Mom, I'm not going to do heroin because I really don't like needles, neither before nor after. What was I going to say?
The show's Intervention and Hoarders remain my guiltiest pleasures. I could watch and rewatch that show over and over and over.
As an epilogue, I think the only other thing besides Intervention that I've watched is Arrested Development. I'm continuing on. I watched 3 seconds of the new season and was like, haha. I still don't know what's going on, so I went back and I'm watching like the recut version. Like I'm just gonna finish it out. And to Brylan, your point from last time we talked about this, it works way better the way they initially had it. I'm like 3/4 of the way through, and they reveal the punchline to jokes in sequential order, so there's no build up whatsoever. And I thoroughly prefer the original way they presented it, however slow that first went through. Like the first half of the season is pretty much nonsense. It just prepares you for the second half. As for what
I finished season 5 recently, and I put up a little blurb on Instagram, and I think you're probably doing the right thing by watching season 4 again, because I was completely lost.
Oh yeah, no, I got 3 seconds in, I was like, ha, no. And so I just went up and went and finished it. So as for what I'm drinking Rebel IPA by Sam Adams. I figure if we're going to do a podcast about one of the most famous rebels in Rebel Alliance history, might as well be topical. That's my new thing for the past 3 or 4 weeks, and I hope that my recommendations are on point. This one, I've had it before. It's solid, and try it out if you're in the Boston area.
And it's tropical because it has summer and Lindy. Is it lemon in it? Is it tropical?
No, it's boldly hopped and balanced.
It's got full Thanos body to it.
Perfectly balanced.
Hops.
As all things should be.
Well, Blue, is always great to see you, and it's great to hear you. So I'm excited for you, and I'm really excited to get the majority of your thoughts on the music, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, because me and Derek have been chatting up a bunch about the score. My name is Warren. I will be your host this evening. What I am currently drinking right now is the Narragansett Dell Shandies. Yep. Pretty delicious. Nothing new. And it's amazing. Don't shake your head. It's delicious. You don't shake your head, Bryla. I didn't judge you. You're drinking water for the second week straight. So shut up.
Okay.
And I actually had a chance to watch a bunch of stuff. So I actually just recently took a look and started watching The Spawn, which is on HBO right now, actually on Amazon Prime, the animated series. I am not going to go back and watch the movie. But the animated series I remember watching when I was a kid, and I'm just trying to see how it holds up, because they already announced that movie that's coming out, that Todd McFarlane is actually going to be directing. So it's going to be really interesting to see if he's going to draw any ideas from the TV show, which is about 18 episodes, I believe, or not. So I think it's actually 3 seasons, but we'll see. So I've been kind of catching up for that. I finally got a chance to watch The Florida Project. It's on Amazon Prime. Has anybody else seen this movie?
I have not.
I watched it on the plane during my last trip.
Okay.
It's a rare movie where Willem Dafoe is actually a good person.
No, he's not. But
darn it.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't think he's a bad person, though.
Yeah, yes. So, quick hot takes. A couple quick points is I'm not sure why people were raving about this movie. You don't like any of the characters. Willem Dafoe is a terrible enabler throughout the entire movie and literally does nothing to step in and help out the child the entire time in a verbally and just terrible scenario and situation that's happening and how it unfolds. But overall, you just are not meant to like any of the characters, and it's more of a slice of life that's happening with it. And I'm just confused why everybody thought this was an Oscar nomination for Willem Dafoe, and why this should have been an Oscar nomination for the movie of the year.
I fully agree with you. I liked the movie. I thought it was a good movie, and I enjoyed it. But I thought Willem Dafoe's performance was just kind of standard good acting. It wasn't anywhere near what I would have expected for an Oscar nomination. Who should have gotten the Oscar nomination was the little girl. I can't remember the actress's name right now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But she's 6 years old or something like that, or 7 years old, and she was absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
and the range of emotions that she brought to it and how real she made it feel was beyond what a lot of the adult actors in that same movie could do. So
absolutely. Yeah, I think she was the only, and I'm going to find her name a little bit later, but I think she was the only person, I'll take that back, that's the only person that I actually liked in the movie, because she was the victim in the movie. And she just kind of went and rolled with the punches, and she was super resilient, but still kind of dealt with the shit that was given to her, shitty hand that was dealt to her. So But everything else about the movie, it really, really irritated me. And then I watched it and I was like, why was everybody raving about this movie? I'm not sure why. So that's the Florida Project. That's actually on Amazon Prime right now. Definitely go check that out. And then if I'm wrong, come holler at me. But you're going to be wrong anyway. And then the last one that I want to talk about is I saw Downsizing, starring Matt Damon. Does anybody else see this movie?
I kind of wanted to see it, but I didn't.
No.
I heard it was one of the more slept upon movies from last year.
And I definitely think because I went back and I think it was last year. Yeah. Oh, maybe the year before. I went back and looked at, the trailer and the way that they made this movie seem like it was a comedy that's going to star really Matt Damon and, oh crap, what's her name? She's from Saturday Night Live. Kristen Wiig. Yeah, Kristen Wiig. And it was going to be from them. And, one of the premise of the movie is, they're downsizing because of, there's overpopulation and there has to be a balance. But there has to they're trying to figure out how to minimize the amount of waste and everything that's actually happening. So people would shrink themselves down and they'll live in like other community scenarios and things like that. But this movie took a huge turn that I really, really enjoyed, and I like what the movie was trying to do, and I like how the movie like kind of portrayed it, and it completely like goes away from whatever the trailers were mentioning. So I thought that was pretty cool, but I don't know if a lot of people are going to like that movie because I think they really went to go see this movie between Matt Damon and Kristen Wiig, and that's not the movie you get.
You could see that in the trailers though, that it was going to take a more serious route, like. You watch the trailers and you're like, this isn't going to be a funny movie about people being small.
So I need to watch the trailer again, but I was like, but it was a pleasantly surprised movie. I actually don't know if they're streaming that anywhere. I saw it on a plane, on American Airlines plane, so definitely go if you can go check that out. I'm sure it's going to be available for rent or DVD or something like that. So
hashtag American Airlines, hashtag in-flight movie. It's gonna be our new market.
No, I mean that'd be great, but I doubt. I highly doubt. So that's what I've been watching and what we've been drinking. So we are going to get into our full review. The way that we're broken it up tonight, we're going to be talking about the acting and the casting as well, along with the kind of the music and the score. And so the last thing we're going to talk about the plot and the universe and the world building as well. So we are excited. We are pumped. What we're going to do is take a quick commercial break and we'll be back for you and we're going to do a full actual review, spoilers and all, of Solo, A Star Wars Story. So we'll see you soon. And we are back, and we are the Down in Front podcast. Here I am with Brylan, Mocha, Blewett, and we are going to be reviewing Solo, a Star Wars film. Now, if you haven't seen the movie for right now, I would say pause the recording. Definitely go watch it and pick up right where we left off. There will be some things that we will be spoiling out of the gate, and there's some things that you definitely want to make sure that you don't know, at least about this movie, because it may ruin it for you. So, without further ado, I'm going to toss it over and we're going to be talking a bit about the acting and the casting. And Brylan, start us off with what are some wins and some losses and just everything that you think about the acting and casting of Solo, a Star Wars Story.
Yeah, so I'll start with the big characters in this movie. So there's a lot of talk before this movie came out that Alden Ehrenreich, the guy they got to play Solo, didn't look the part, didn't look like Harrison Ford. And despite their differences in bone structure and their facial features, I think Alden Ehrenreich actually knocked it out of the park with his characterization, mannerisms of Han Solo. It was pretty cool to have him be kind of this younger Han Solo that still has that brash roguishness and charm that Harrison Ford brought to the role, but it's also a little less refined than what Harrison Ford was going for. So you see like he's kind of just learning how to be the person he wants to be and what that is. He's on he's on a journey of self-discovery, and I think he does a really great job of portraying that character, and like the way that people fell in love with Han Solo in A New Hope. I mean, you kind of fall in love with Han Solo all over again in this movie. He has some great people to play off of, especially Donald Glover as Lando, who's pretty much the personification embodiment. If you took Billy D. Williams and just regressed his age by 40 years, you would have this Lando Calrissian, which is awesome, and especially like in his mannerisms and word pronunciation. So how he calls Han, I really appreciate that. But we kind of find out that he's mispronouncing it, kind of get a rise out of Han Solo, and it's like they have this bit of a banter and connection that's like, hey, we're gonna compete against one another, and we kind of don't like one another, but we respect each other on a certain level, which I appreciated. And the guy that plays Chewbacca does a really good job, which, I mean, that's a role that's don't really have many talking parts except for Chewbacca's growls and everything, but he has those physical mannerisms that you expect out of Chewbacca that Peter Mayhew made so famous in the first one. So I feel like that works really well in this movie. Its heart is like that growing friendship of Han and Chewbacca. Aside from the three big characters, I think there's a lot of side characters that do a good job. Specifically, Woody Harrelson as Tobias, this reluctant mentor to Han Solo, and kind of like the guy that Han Solo starts to learn what it is to be a smuggler, what it is to kind of be this self-reliant individual that goes through the galaxy, not choosing a side or anything, but you're just in it for yourself. And I think he does a really good job of embodying that. This movie also reminded me that Paul Bettany, as he does someone like Vision, where he brings an android that's usually lifeless, a bit of heart to it. He can also be a very scary, creepy dude, and also charming at the same time. And I really liked his character of Voss, how he's just like able to flip on a switch. Hey, this is about business. Let's talk business. But then all of a sudden he's just like, oh, you just crossed me. I'm going to be ruthless as hell, and you can't get out of this, because that's the type of person I am. And so I think he made for a really great villain in this. Other than that, I thought like there was some opportunities with Emilia Clarke's character. I was just feeling like she was reading her lines like she reads Daenerys. She was solid, but I mean, was there really some specific unique personality to Kira? Not necessarily. She just kind of was there to be like that first girl that kind of gives Han Solo some motivation to fight for what he believes in. And I thought that the character of Enfys Nest was kind of heavy-handed at the end when we reveal that she's someone that's fighting for her home and wants to get in the Empire's way any way possible. But she is actually a very visually cool character from her armor and everything. But when she takes off her helmet, she's also a very unique looking individual as well, which I thought was really cool. And then there's some bit characters they got. They got some really good actors to play some bit parts, like Jon Favreau and Tandy Newton. I really appreciated that. These big characters, they even had their moments where you care about them, just because these actors know how to bring some personality to those characters, even if it's just some brief moments. I mean, I really liked Val. I really liked Rio, even though he's CG created. Jon Favreau did a great job of adding that personality to him.
I would say the Joonas Suotamo, he's the same character. He's the same Chewbacca from episode 7 and episode 8. So it's nice that they've kept that and they visually changed that. Chewbacca doesn't have any more gray hair as fur. Much more like a brown or more full colored sort of fur. So I thought that was pretty cool for them to see that, and even his introduction, I thought that was pretty cool. So good on that. And I'm surprised, just going off of a couple things, Brylan, that people were complaining about this guy not looking like Harrison Ford, but I don't think he's supposed to look like Harrison Ford that much. I mean, he should resemble him, but not exactly look like a younger version of Harrison Ford. So I think that's kind of stupid, but people are dumb, I guess.
Yeah, that was like the initial reaction when the first trailer comes out. I was like, this guy doesn't look like Harrison Ford. This is gonna be terrible. And
I did think it was the same guy from Baby Driver, though.
Yeah, they do have that similarity in their names. The only other movie I saw Alden Ehrenreich in was Hail Caesar, Coen Brothers film. He has one part where he is freaking hilarious in as this dumb cowboy actor trying to do something else. And I was like, this guy's going to be in some things and he's going to be a big star. And I'm glad he got this role.
Nice. Blue, you say something?
Yeah, so funny enough, I thought Peter Mayhew played Chewbacca in episode 7. Definitely
I think
wasn't
for the close-ups.
Yeah. So
not for the walking around.
It's funny because, like, you know, for a guy that's 7 feet tall, it's kind of impressive that he had the career that he has. Like, usually your body breaks down when you're that big. So, I mean, kudos for Mayhew, and I thought that the transition was seamless. Even though Chewbacca was not used that much in episode 8. Couple things to unpack there. I think that I totally agree with you, Bryland, on Emilia Clarke. I think that Game of Thrones, due to its subject matter and directing, really, really covers some of the actors and actresses, like, absolute terribleness. Like, Emilia Clarke and Sophie Turner cannot act. They just cannot act. I honestly, even I think Kit Harington is not a good actor. And they somehow, the casting directors put them in roles that they just absolutely shine in because that's what the role demands.
Yep. Have you seen 7 Days in Hell?
No. I hear that's good though. You
should watch it. I think that would give you more respect for Kit Harington.
Really? Again, like it seems like a lot of the people they get in Game of Thrones, besides like a few of them, are like not that great, but they just put them in absolute perfect roles. They're like the freaking Patriots of the TV shows, where like they take everyone else's scraps and just put them in perfect roles that they just succeed in. And Emilia Clarke proved that again. She's not a very good actress. Her storyline basically is just like, dude, like you're either gonna die or do something that Han doesn't like you for anymore. So like, why do I care about this relationship? As far as Han Solo goes, he kind of killed it. As much as it pains me to say this, he had like the look. I don't really care. That didn't really matter. But like his mannerisms and his vocalization was spot on. Like I remember reading a story about how they had to bring an accent coach in, but it's like, dude, you're trying to impersonate someone who's still alive. Like, yeah, get an accent coach in there because that's hard to do. Like, he was in a movie 2 years ago in Star Wars. Like, that's what you have to follow up. So, yeah. I think that was fine. I don't think my gripes with this movie comes down to that casting. Like, he did well with what he needed to do. You said something interesting, and this is the last point on really casting that I want to have, is the whole, like, Infus Nest side story. I kind of hated the fact that, like, that was... like Han Solo was part of the start of the rebellion, but I really liked the characters.
He wasn't quite start of it though.
Oh yeah,
I don't think
that totally was.
He made sure that he wasn't.
No, I don't even think they're implying that. I think they're implying someone that's standing up against the Empire for the first time, not necessarily the rebellion as we know.
Yeah, but come on, where do you think that's going? Like read between the lines.
Yeah, it's a heavy foreshadow just dropped in your lap. But is this where the rebellion as we know it in the New Hope starts?
Well, the thing about the rebellion is that is that in terms of Star Wars lore, it started as just a bunch of different pockets of people fighting back against the Empire when they could, and it didn't really become a unified rebellion until Mon Mothma abandoned the Senate and decided to lead them. Yeah. So I think it's more of just a seed for what's going on in the galaxy, as opposed to like the actual beginning of the rebellion itself.
But still, it was definitely like a little bit of like clearly.
Oh, it's definitely.
If this movie made
to plant.
If this movie made more money, they would like this movie. I think tripled its production costs. I think it's at $500 million right now, and I think it was 150 was the production costs. I think I'm pretty sure, but like, so they're definitely going to make more along the lines of this film. You know, they're going to make anthology films that relate to this particular storyline. And I think that casting a relative unknown for Enfys Nest gives you control over that actress's abilities, and I think that they will transition that into the start of the rebellion. So, and I from a storyline perspective, I kind of hated the fact that he was there for the start of it. But the character itself was freaking cool. The armor was cool. The motivation was really cool. The whole part about like the tongues getting cut off and like the reveal at the end was like awesome. Her signature weapon being like not a lightsaber, but like this weird
like a vibroblade almost.
Yeah. That was a cool weapon. And I even like the reveal that it was a woman. Like the entire film, you expected it to be a man, and I loved the reveal that it was some chick.
Not only a woman, but she's kind of a child too.
Yeah, diminutive in stature.
Yeah.
I will say this, that I'm actually kind of excited to see where they'll go with that character. That I think that you could transition her into, you know, I think, what is it, 10 years before A New Hope is this movie? So I think that you could age her up. What?
No,
before the Battle of Yavin, for those who don't know. And so I think you could age the character up, and I'm actually kind of excited to see who that character is. Because I think the Star Wars, you can't be stupid like Episode 8 and like have nothing matter. I think that Enfys Nest will become someone who is, you know, and love from the original trilogy. And it'll be cool to like subtly fill in their backstory, which would have been nice if that's what Solo was about, but if it's not, because it didn't subtly fill anyone's backstory in.
You're gonna have Admiral Steve Nest in Episode 9.
No. It's like she goes into like a sex change and become a crustacean, and she's Admiral Akbar. Like that would be nuts, you know.
I think it's a little bit more than sex, but I feel you.
No, that's what I mean. Like she sex change and she becomes a crustacean. Like that's. No, like I think it'd be interesting. Like I honestly, as soon as it was revealed that it was a woman, I expected her to say her name was like either Mon Mothma or what was Bail's wife's name?
Who?
Bail Organa.
Bail Organa's.
We never learn what that is.
It'd be Cindy Organa.
But it'd be cool if she'd name drop someone that was like Bail's wife. You know, like it'd be interesting if they came back to that and made her someone who was an integral part of the rebellion. Like I think that's where it'll end up going. And I'm kind of excited to see where that character goes in the future.
So we'll get into that a little bit later. I'm going to toss it over to Mocha, and we continue to talk about Solo, a Star Wars movie. Mocha, what you got?
So, in terms of like the characters and the acting, my overall feeling for this movie as a whole, but also but also applies to the casting and the acting, is just an overwhelming feeling of okayness. I was very okay with everything, and I feel like the casting was pretty okay all around, with a few exceptions that were actually, in my opinion, inspired. Alden Third Reich was like, he grew on me as the movie went on.
Wow.
He grew on me as the movie progressed. I didn't care for him too much at first, but I felt like he really did find his way into a really solid impersonation of Harrison Ford as Han Solo. And I kind of bought it as the movie went on and grew to like him more and more. Donald Glover was also a perfect casting for Lando, though For him though, I found his impersonation of Billy D. Williams to be inconsistent. There were moments where when Donald Glover got the Lando voice down, it was like transcendent. It was Billy D. Williams. It was Lando Calrissian, and it was super impressive. But I also feel like throughout the course of the movie, I heard every single character that Donald Glover has ever played. I heard Donald Glover from Community. I heard Donald Glover from Atlanta. I heard Childish Gambino. Like each different voice popped up at different times.
Did you hear Bro Rape though? Lest you forget about Derek Comedy.
That's so good.
That's true. I did
Put
not
some
hear
Jack
Bro
Johnson.
Rape,
And a 2-foot black dildo.
But yeah, so I felt like his performance was inconsistent. But like when it was on, it was better than I could have hoped for. It transported me right back into Empire Strikes Back.
It's like a closet of capes.
Yeah, it's closet full of capes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the cape that Kira is trying on when Han comes to accost her in the changing room, that's the same cape that he's wearing in Empire, right?
Yeah, it's the one from Bespin.
Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Yeah, lots of capes, including some custom pieces. But as for the other characters, for me, all of the most interesting characters were killed off at first chance, in my opinion. Yes. I was super interested in Val. She was this like roguish sapper who clearly had a badass personality and could take care of herself. Rio was super fun and had like a great voice and a great personality brought to life by Jon Favreau. L337, even though I have some issues with her character, she was still like the one droid, and droids are always interesting to have around. And I feel like all the interesting characters got knocked off right away in order for us to have a movie that was about like the 3 least interesting characters and Chewie. Chewie was awesome in this movie. He was great, and I love everything they did with this character. But Han Solo himself, but especially Tobias Beckett and Kira, were just super bland. And kind of cookie cutter in some ways, and just not as interesting as everyone else that was there. I would have loved to have seen Tobias Beckett and Val's roles switched. Like if Val was Val Beckett or whatever, and Tobias was the one who sacrifices himself in the beginning, and she's the hardened badass who pushes up past her emotions and goes on with her mission. Like I would have been more interested in that character.
I think that would have been even more impactful, though. Just to be honest, I think that would have been pretty cool to see.
Tandy Newton's an amazing actress, so she can pull it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wish I could have seen more of those characters, but and seen more of what they could have brought to the role. But Jon Favreau was great. Tandy Newton was cool in what we could see of her, and yeah, I feel like overall there wasn't anything really bad about the casting in this film whatsoever. But for the characters that we got to see most of the way through, even Paul Bettany to an extent, I like Paul Bettany. I'm not sure. I haven't really come to terms with what I think of his character as Voss in this film, or how he portrays it, because it was hard for me not to see.
He was good.
Paul Bettany. He wasn't bad, no, but like I couldn't not see Paul Bettany. I couldn't really get caught up in the character of Voss.
Yeah, midway through, he did a bunch of Vision type stuff. Like I think at one point he did this thing, like the whole hands touching, but fingers spread apart. It's
and his one coke nail that he had was kind of
well, Vision does like to party, so
I love Paul Bettany's take on it, because I like this little thing they had where he was like a very laid back, casual business guy. He's head of the Crimson Dawn, this criminal network, and he's like, "Oh, Tobias, my friend, come in." It's kind of like he's there to bait the unknowing victim and reel him in, and then he just stabs him right there. Who's gonna drop one of the worst Star Wars video games ever and mention Terrace Kasi? And I thought that was just thank you. That's awesome. I thought that was amazing, and just to show off what can Terrace Kasi be, and those vibro blades he had were really badass.
I will say this from a visual perspective, his scars widening when he got angered was really cool. I thought that was a very good way of broadcasting what you were about to see next, without necessarily exploring that with dialogue.
I agree. It gave a really subtle alienness to the character to remind the audience that, hey, they're humanoids, but in the Star Wars universe, most sentient beings are humanoids, but they're all still aliens. Right. But yeah,
I mean,
I did like
there's
that
literally
story.
no humans. It's in a galaxy far away from Earth. They're Corellians. They're native Corellians, but
Interesting. Yeah, guys, a bunch of nerds.
Scientist.
I'm gonna go and I'm probably gonna agree with a lot with Mocha about the okayness. You know, you've hit a lot of the points from talking about L3. Like, there's, you know, and also kind of agree with more along the lines of kind of blew it of these characters I just didn't care anything about. And, you know, even for that matter, you know, there's a lot of characters. Like I cared a bit about K2SO kind of more so than kind of the L3, but I at least like some of the moments that they gave him with her. And I like the fact that she's voiced by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is absolutely amazing. And I think I definitely mentioned that I think she directed and starred in a TV show on Amazon Prime called Fleabag, and she's almost identical to that character, but like that show is a bit more R-rated than this one here.
Warren, that one line when she said, it was like, what do you want? And she just screams equal rights. I kind of lost it on that one. Like, that was wicked funny.
So so I love the fact that they're doing the heist and they all had like something to do, kind of sort of, and everybody's kind of given a goal, and she has this task, and like she literally like frees this guy from removing a restraining bolt, which I think was very, very funny, because that's another kind of callback from a movie that chronologically we're going to see a little bit later on. And so you then start seeing that, you know, she releases the restraining bolt, and he was like, well, what are you supposed to do? And then that one bot like starts just releasing everybody else, and just causes like this crazy mass hysteria. So I thought that was kind of pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that she was kind of like a hard ass version of Korg from Ragnarok, and she's actually successful in a revolution.
Well, Korg would have been really successful, but just no one showed up.
No pamphlets. Yeah,
I didn't print out enough pamphlets. L337. So I'm a big fan of droids in the Star Wars universe. I'm always excited to see which droid or droids appear in a new movie and what their personalities are like. But there's one concern that I have with droids over the course of Star Wars film history, and that's with personality creep. So we've seen with the first introduction of droids in Star Wars: A New Hope, we're shown two things. One, that not all droids can communicate in any given language, right? And all droids function or exist based on what their primary functions are. So like you have a droid like C-3PO, who is a protocol droid. So the reason why he can communicate with others and has a personality programmed into him is because he has to be able to communicate with like different beings from all over the universe. Whereas you have repair droids and astromech droids who may have some personality built into them, but they can't communicate in outside of just like a series of boops, because they only need to communicate with computer systems and their pilots. And with each Star Wars movie that we've seen more and more vibrant and bombastic personalities come out of the newly introduced droids. And there's a certain point where I wonder, like, I've always been worried that we're going to get to a point where droids are just human for the sake of being humans, but are also robots in terms of personality. And I feel like that's where we got with L337. Even K2SO from Rogue One had a really bombastic personality, but that was explained, right? He was damaged in combat, and when they repaired him, there was like issues with his like personality programming, and it made him be a bit more sassy than other droids. But with L337, she's just like, she's sentient for some reason, or at least believes she has full sentience, and believes in like rights for droids and things like this, which it's all well and good, and it was an interesting enough like take to bring out her character, but it does push it into the realm of, this is just a human character that happens to be a robot because we need a robot in this movie, rather than making like, I don't know, a droid.
It should have
had more of a droid personality than a human personality in her.
Yeah, like even if you wanted to go towards the route of her being like more sassy and like bombastic, at least have some of that robotic essence to it. Whereas she just felt like a human character that was really interested in saving other droids.
So yeah, let's talk about the plot, and let's talk about kind of the universe building. I'm going to toss it over to Brylan, and says, Brylan, like, talk to me something about, you know, the plot and how things kind of worked for Solo, a Star Wars film.
Yeah, so when it comes to the plot of this movie, it is definitely very straightforward. It is a definitely kind of pay by numbers heist film that you see, or like multiple heists going on. So you get to see Han Solo's like first foray into being a smuggler with the hijacking of the train, which is a great action beat, and it's a lot of fun to be introduced to these characters. What I think elevates it a lot more is just a lot of these references, even though they can be kind of cheesy or heavy-handed, but kind of just paying homage to what came before it, but also kind of being precursors for a lot of Star Wars stuff. Being a Star Wars fan since I was in the womb, pretty much, I really loved every single moment they like brought up something that kind of is like Han Solo kind of getting his whole equipment throughout this movie, whether it's Tobias taking apart the rifle and giving him the DL-44, or if it's the mention of Teras Kasi, or the whole thing with Tobias and Val being such strong personalities that I want to see a movie about how Tobias and Val met and fall in love now. I think that would be a fantastic Star Wars story to tell. It's definitely not for this movie, but it's something that could actually kind of lead us on towards this underworld aspect of the Star Wars universe that could be its own thing. And like kind of like bringing in things like the Crimson Dawn, like also like let's have a movie about like how what happens with Kira and the Crimson Dawn after this movie, and see how it leads to maybe they have a run-in with the Black Sun, and that's like the demise of the Crimson Dawn. I think that would be really interesting. I think that's the biggest string of why I had so much fun with this, because this movie moves at a breakneck pace. I mean, you're in a car chase like at least 2 minutes into the movie, and you're just like, wow, this is an awesome car chase on Corellia. We've never seen Corellia before on film, so it's really cool to see that be brought into the film universe. How Han Solo got his name. A lot of people are going to gripe that that's dumb and everything, and it does come off kind of cheesy, but I think it's really neat to see like Han is this character from nothing, and all these different moments in the movie kind of start to build out who is Han Solo as a character. I like seeing like the Sabacc games. I wish they did more with the Sabacc games, but I think it's really cool to see them sit down and like have that battle of wits over a poker table. And they could have done a lot more with that. I thought when it comes to the Kessel Run, it's definitely not what I envisioned. I thought of the Kessel Run more of just like very super fast travel through space, and they made it this big obstacle course. And I mean, probably my biggest gripe is this giant space squid they add to it that attacks them. And I was like, you don't really need that. That's kind of weird. It's visually cool to see a space squid get ripped up by this maelstrom. I almost said it like Lando Maelstrom. This, like, just to see this maelstrom just rip its skin off and its bones and everything and suck it into that void. But I think like that maelstrom being like the thing that kind of like takes this pristine ship that Lando loves and kind of makes it kind of beaten and kind of just a survivor ship. That's kind of like what Han Solo is a survivor of moments and someone that's on there for his own interest when he's early on as Han Solo. That the maelstrom and like just finding a way to shoot the engines as fast as possible to get out of there and like speed through this shortcut through the Kessel Run, which I thought that would have been a more impactful moment if you made it a little bit more simpler than what it was. Hang on
1 second.
Oh, yeah,
I gotta talk about the Kessel Run. So,
right.
Because literally, a year ago, 2 years ago, when they announced this movie being made, I said they're gonna have to do the Kessel Run, and I think it's gonna be stupid. And I stand by that. I saw the movie, and it's still stupid. The squid thing was dumb. The fact that I actually did one thing I liked was how the Falcon disintegrated throughout the entire movie. Like it lost like the radar, it lost the escape pod, it lost like parts of it that it got damaged. Like I was
the landing.
Yeah, I was fine with that. That like it slowly became the ship that we all knew and loved, because like that ship is the best. I just didn't. I didn't like that. Like, he lied, one, about the Kessel Run, and about, like, oh, you have round down. Like, that's stupid. And it also answered the question of whether Han Solo knows what a parsec is, which I always thought was dumb. I thought
I like that they kept with that erroneous information that even Lando says, like, there's no way to finish a Kessel Run more than 20 parsecs. And then he's just like, oh, I can do it faster. And he sticks with that. But it's not faster.
It's shorter.
And it's you know what? It's yeah, and that's the whole thing is that, I mean, yeah, the actual science fact is that's not how you measure that type of thing with a parsec. It's a matter of it's a matter of just like Han Solo is this guy that did this Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. And you see, like in A New Hope, he's made it even less. It's like we're going less than 12 now.
But here it's like I made it in 12 parsecs. Not knowing whether he was a genius or an idiot. Like, that was the great side of Han Solo, that he was this weird in-between of, like, I don't know if he's on top of it or full of it. Like, and so the Kessel Run, when you really analyze that, is the perfect microcosm of Han Solo as a character. And so seeing that play out was shenanigans. The other thing was that canonically, there we go. That's the pronunciation. Canonically, the big point was that he bent light around a black star or black hole. Excuse me. Black Star is a wonderful album.
It's great.
Yeah, wonderful group. Check it out.
Most Def, Talib Kweli.
Ooh,
check it out.
Yes. It was canonically done by bending the light around a black hole, and that's how he was accomplishing the same distance in less distance. And so
we never got any of that information in the movies of how he did the Kessel Run.
But knowing kind of that information going into it, the whole thing played out stupid, where it ended up being like, oh, a droid found a shortcut in the whole thing. Like, I don't know. To me, it just did not play out that well. Like, I would have loved to have seen some weird space bending, like almost like what they did in Guardians 2, where they really stressed themselves flying next to a black hole to be able to accomplish the run in less distance than distance. And it just didn't. It literally ended up becoming like, hey, let's just kick the hyperdrive into like super hyperdrive, and then we got out with no problem. Like, there was no extra feat. Realistically speaking, like, you could just see the exit. You know, it was closing. It was like you could see it. That was the only way out. They just had to get the engine souped up to the speed that they wanted it to. And to me, that was just cheap. It visually looked nice, but like, it was a cheap storytelling technique.
Yeah. I mean, one other thing I think like Kessel Run's kind of lacking is just kind of like the kineticism you need for it to feel fast. I think there were some really cool obstacle moments. Like, I loved like how he just slid the Millennium Falcon on that comet to like get so close to the ground that the TIE fighters just don't know what to do anymore, and that he just busts the engines. I thought that was a fantastic moment. The whole super fuel that they have, I mean, it is the big MacGuffin here, and it's a simple MacGuffin.
I was fine with it.
But yeah, I was fine with it. That's what it takes to break out of the gravity well of the Maelstrom. One other thing I would say, like, I mean, the big reveal here, like we had in Rogue One, we had a big reveal of Darth Vader being in that and his badass scene at the end. We have a big reveal that Darth Maul is the head of the Crimson Dawn. And I could see where a lot of people, if all they've ever seen is Phantom Menace, they'll see Darth Maul with his robotic legs now, and they're just like, oh, it's Darth Maul, whatever. But for me, that was exciting because I have learned about a Darth Maul that is a complex character, that is kind of dealing with this underworld and has kind of like carved his own path throughout the Star Wars universe when it comes to Star Wars, Clone Wars, and Rebels. And it was really exciting and fun to see, like, oh, this is what Darth Maul's doing at this moment of time. I know what happens in the future from here. I know what happened before that. And it's cool that they have this little moment of Darth Maul, and it's fantastic to cast Ray Park again as the visual look of Darth Maul, but also to get the voice of Darth Maul from Clone Wars and Rebels as his voice was fantastic as well.
There's nothing in this movie that gives you that significance, and if you name drop some of these names, you'll have no idea what they're talking about. And Bradley, you mentioned a bunch of stuff today also, but like, it's one of the things in which the story and the plot itself is going to be very easy, and it's a story that we've kind of sort of already seen before in the Star Wars film, in the franchise itself. You have, it's kind of like a heist film. They try to go somewhere. Oh, somebody's going to kill them. Okay, so what do you have to do? We have to do a job for them. All right, let's go somewhere and let's try to steal something from this one place. And the robot at some point is going to die, and then somebody's going to get betrayed, and then it's like a very much like you've seen this before. And that's the one thing that I was kind of bummed about, the plot itself, and I wanted them to change it up, but L3 and K2SO was almost the same exact sort of archetype or character in this movie, and it was kind of a bummer. And you have these new, like, different kind of new characters that I was really hoping to see something different. And I think majority of the time that I'm watching this movie, it just felt like I have already seen this movie before, whether it's or not.
The thing is, the biggest difference between this, if you compare this to Rogue One, they're both heist films. They're both heist films for different reasons. You're getting like kind of birth of the resistance or the rebellion in Rogue One. You're getting more of a smaller story here with Han Solo's just kind of finding his place in the universe and building this friendship with Chewie. The only difference is I was loving all the characters in this movie. I was loving the side characters, even if they're there for just a brief moment of time. Whereas in Rogue One, I felt that it was very lifeless. There wasn't any energy to the movie. It was dark, but you can still have energy and have a dark, serious tale. Yeah. And that movie does not come to life until that very end, with Darth Vader is just going to town, and you're just, holy shit, this is the best Star Wars geek out moment ever.
I completely am 180 on you on this one. I literally, like, everything you just said just flipped the movies, and that's what I believe. Except for the whole ending part, because I don't think that it had a very good ending. No. For me, like, the characters were much more urgent in Rogue One. They felt like they had an immediacy to them. And they had they had anonymity, but like they kind of mattered because of that. Whereas Han Solo, like, the whole plot of it, like, we all know that Kira is either gonna die or just be so bad that Han doesn't care for her anymore, right? Like, there's they try to set up this whole romance. It's like, no, dude, you're gonna be with Princess Leia. Like, we know that 10 years down the line, you are gonna be with Princess Leia. So either something horrible is gonna happen to Kira, or she's gonna be so bad that you literally don't care about her anymore. Like, I couldn't get into any of the side characters in Solo because of that, because you know where they end up. I think one of the magic parts of Rogue One is that you figured that everyone was going to die, but you thought, oh, maybe some of them will just like go underground and like, do something else. No, they all died. And that was amazing. Whereas with this movie, you were guaranteed that a lot of them were going to make it out just fine, and you know where they ended up. So it was really hard to get into the whole interactions they had, the relationships that they formed right now, because you know where they end up later on.
Yeah, it's just that, that whole Magnificent Seven take on the characters in Rogue One. It just never worked for me. And I don't want to make this about like Rogue One versus Solo, but you do have some comparisons to it.
Well, the issue that I was like, at least the comparison I was making was like the plots were the same. It like you're gonna care about the characters differently, you know, but it was a very similar plot.
Yeah, it is definitely a very similar plot, and I think just the matter of these characters being kind of the roguish type of characters that, yeah, their motivations are all self-centered, it's all selfish and everything, and they're all like bringing their own personalities to it. That's what was lacking in Rogue One, was like there was no personality to it except for Saw Gerrera's awkward ass. but this movie is just a lot more fun and it's a lot more entertaining because of that, and would definitely watch this again before I watch Rogue One again.
Brother, no, I'm not disagreeing with you. You're going to have opinions. I'm going to have opinions also. I'm going to share it and see, you know, Mocha, what are your opinions about this, about the plot and the world building?
Yeah, so similarly, I feel like this movie was really predictable through and through. I also felt like it had some weird narrative points to it in terms of pacing. Starting with the aftermath of the train heist scene, which is an awesome scene, really cool action, really exciting. And then the scene ends with Valbo and herself up, and they fly off and drop the coaxium into the mountain. And the scene then cuts immediately to them at their graves. And what's his name? Tobias turning around and punching Han Solo in the face. And he's like, well, what was that for? And it was just strange to me that that everyone died, the mission failed, and they flew their plane for however long of a distance till they were free of Enfys Nest, landed it, got out, dug a grave for Rio, built a tombstone for both of them, and then Han Solo like confronts Tobias for the first time and suddenly realizes that he's mad that he got his girlfriend killed. Like, it was just weird pacing in terms of the narrative. I know that they were just trying to tell a story, but it just felt odd. Also, it felt odd when Tobias leaves Han Solo on the beach and is like, you guys help out Enfys Nest. That's not my thing. I'm going to go to Tatooine and get this new job. And then he walks off the screen, and the very next scene is them talking to Voss. And it's like 5 minutes later, and Voss is like, well, come on out, betrayer. And Tobias walks in, and I was like, it was literally so like 5 minutes. Like, there was no build up. There was no there was also no like doubt in my mind, I think, or in anyone's mind that he wasn't going to come back in a traitorous way. So like there were just weird pacing issues, not even pacing issues, but just weird narrative deployments throughout the movie. I think in terms of what it added to the world building, I don't think it really added much to the universe that wasn't already there. It did add enough, they did add a lot of excitement to some things that we didn't necessarily know a lot about before. But I don't think it actually built on the universe too much. Brian, it looks like you have a counterpoint.
I'm just gonna say, like, it worked for me. So even though, I mean, this is a fast-paced movie. They do not rest to kind of dive into what a character may do, or kind of like throw an unreliable moment to make you think, oh, Tobias is good. He cares about Han Solo or anything. I mean, the first thing they do, Tobias mentions it. It's, hey, don't trust anybody, Han. If you're going to be in this lifestyle, you cannot trust anybody. And he tells them that's rule number one. And that's the big difference with Han and everybody else that gets into this smuggler outlaw lifestyle, is that, and even Kira mentions it, and I really like this, that they mention this and bring it up with Han Solo, is that you're a good man. You do care. You have a heart of caring about others, even though you don't want to show it. You do want to be this individual, this strong individual, this brash, arrogant person. But at the end of the day, you are going to care about doing the right thing, even if it means that you lose money in a deal or that you get a bounty on your head. This is going to be who you are for the rest of your life. And when
she said all that?
No, she said you're a good man, and that's all I need to actually know what she means. That. Yeah. And I mean, when they revealed Tobias, was I shocked? No, but I was like, yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. That's like Tobias is showing us true colors, that at the end of the day, he's going to take whatever deal's necessary. And that's why when people are bothered by he's turning around and doesn't doesn't feel prolonged pain for losing Val or anything. It's at the end of the day, and Val was probably the same type of person. That's probably why they married one another, was that they knew that at the end of the day, if anything happens to either of them, it's all about what's going to be the next deal. And you just do anything you have no moral code. It's everything is permissible at that time to do what you want. And I think that works really well. And that's why I like the character Tobias, that he is at the same time, he's a mentor for Han, but he's also the character that Han needs to watch out for the most because he's getting the closest to, but also the character Han shouldn't become as well, because Han does have that extra part of him of having a conscience, having a heart that's going to make him a better person in the long run.
So I do want to make it clear that I don't necessarily have a problem from a story standpoint that Tobias betrayed them. It's just the narrative pacing of it and how it played out in terms of the screenplay that it was just like weirdly off-putting for me. I'm glad you mentioned Kira too, because aside from just finding her to be a really bland female love interest, that was another weird pacing situation with the story where Han gets to Voss's yacht and he's standing there and she taps him on the shoulder and she's like, "Hey Han, it's me." And like, I get that they were just jumping right into it, but it just felt weird. Like the way it happened, I was like, oh, this is a hallucination, or someone's playing a trick on him or something like that. And then the movie just kind of rolled on, and I was like, oh, so that's just it. She grabs him out of nowhere, and then like they're part of the story now. It just felt weird in terms of like the delivery of the story.
They also kept on saying like, oh, I've changed. Like Kira kept on being like, oh, I'm not the person you left on Corellia. I'm not the person. But like she just was the same person until the very end. Like that didn't make any. There was no logical jump. It was completely just like, no, you're the same person. You're the same person. Holy shit, you're a totally different person. And like that reveal, you know, there's good surprise reveals, and then there's the reveals that are just like built up over time, and you're like, oh yeah, I get it. That's awesome. They were like building that. Kira should have been like a build too, rather than like a surprise reveal that she was like part of the evil, you know, conglomeration.
Well, she knows Terrace Kasi. That's different.
Which I'm pretty sure her version of Terrace Kasi was just cape fighting. All she does is like spin her cape twice over the guy's face, and he's like, capes.
Cape's my biggest weakness.
He would not suit well against the Wakanda border tribes.
No, or Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is the master of cape fighting. So aside from my issues there, I thought that the movie had a lot of really fun callbacks and Easter eggs. A lot of them were really subtle, and I appreciated it the second time going through, picking up on some more of them. My favorite one, first run through of this movie, was when Han Solo is standing with his arm around Lando Calrissian looking at the beat up Millennium Falcon. And they have a quiet moment just staring at the ship, and Lando just goes, "I hate you," and Han goes, "I know." And it was such a cool throwback to the "I love you, I know" scene from the original trilogy. There were so many, like I mentioned, they were really subtle. Rio, the guy voiced by Jon Favreau, I think it's during the campfire scene, he mentioned something about how on his homeworld, like his people, no one roasts a Mynock better than his people. And that was a cool little throwback, because the Mynocks are the flying back creatures that latch onto the window of the Millennium Falcon when they're inside the worm in episode.
They eat the power
5.
cables.
Yeah, they eat the power cables. Those are Mynocks. So it was like these really, really deep cut, like subtle references. There was a Mandalorian suit of armor in Voss's chamber, which was really dope.
I loved that.
Yeah, that was a really cool looking one. Also, and I didn't catch it this time, but I heard that the idol from Temple of Doom is also in Voss's room.
No, that was the Sugar Skull. It was more close to Diaz de la Muerta than like the Indiana Jones.
No, but I heard it was specifically like the Indiana Jones like idol is somewhere in that room.
I heard that too, but it's like the skull wasn't enlarged. It was just a crystal skull.
Maybe it was the crystal skull from Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull.
Because they were aliens.
No, but they had like the big back section. I heard that one too, and I thought it was stupid. It probably is true, but like, it was dumb.
Well, that aside, like the call outs, the references, talking about Orsing and Bossk, the reveal of Darth Maul, like all these throwbacks and Easter eggs and things like that. My favorite Easter egg was, oh man, what's his name? We got to see that the white-faced, white-headed, like mask-covered alien that rolls with Saw Gerrera in Rogue One. We got to see that he was one of the aliens that were part of Enfys Nest's original like rebellious team. So it was cool that we saw 10 years before Rogue One his pre-radicalized form. I think his name is like Endrion Two Tubes or something like that. But it was really cool for me.
Well, there's also Weasel, who he showed up previously Menace, at Jabba the in Phantom Menace.
Was it a Phantom Menace?
Yeah,
it was in the pod racing scene.
Yeah. He was been on the pod racing.
He was what's that face? I don't remember. Was his Watto? He was part of Watto's crowd.
Yeah, and so this movie had like for its other like lacks, it had a lot of cool Easter eggs and fun throwbacks that I enjoyed. And ultimately, I do want to make it clear that I did like this movie. I did enjoy watching it. I don't think it was bad. I just think it was okay overall compared to like any other Star Wars movies and other movies that are coming out at the time. So like, yes, it's predictable, but not to a point where it was a bad movie. I had some issues with the narrative pacing, but I didn't think it was bad.
Would you rank this movie ahead of the 3 prequels?
So a buddy of mine actually asked me that when I first told him that. Oh, I don't know. It was an okay movie. And he was like, well, where'd you put it with the prequels? I would probably put this, put like episode 3 and then Solo and then 2.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about conclusions.
Put this ahead of the 3 prequels.
Yeah. Let's do some conclusions.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure. That's a good point.
So in conclusion, I'm pumped. I think we have a lot of nerds on this podcast. I'm not even sure why I'm even here today because I didn't watch any of the stuff. I did see Clone Wars, but I didn't see Rebels, but it's okay. So we have we're on a bit of a divide. It seems like everybody's right on this podcast except Ryland. But it's just kidding.
Just like Han Solo, my own man.
Yeah, there you go. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, so give me some lasting thoughts, Brylan, about Han Solo. Why you would recommend people to watch this movie? If you had to kind of rate it with the first 6 movies, where did you put this?
Oh, with the first 6.
Yeah.
I would say so number 1 with a bullet always for me will be Return of the Jedi. Then I'll put Empire and
is that a Fallout Boy reference, by the way?
What's that?
You'll be my number 1 with a bullet. No. I'm pretty sure that's in a Fallout Boy song.
But it was also a phrase before that.
A common catchphrase.
Relax.
The only time I've ever heard that is in Fallout Boy. I was like, that's
I'm
amazing.
older than you, so when I heard that Fallout Boy song, I was like, oh, they're doing that reference. So we definitely have the original trilogy that I always rank Jedi, Empire, and then A New Hope. And then you have the prequels. Definitely Revenge of the Sith is the best of the prequels. And then Phantom Menace and then Attack of the Clones. Solo, if I'm not counting any of the other movies, Solo would be much higher than the prequels, but still below A New Hope on that level. So it's definitely in the middle, but the cool thing is, this is probably the most fun Star Wars film ever made. It's got this fun, excitement, energy, and adventure to it, and you just fall in love with Han Solo again, and I think that's very telling to just the strength of Alden Ehrenreich and the characters that they actually brought into this movie. And the big thing about this movie is it wants me to see more movies or read more stories about all these other characters that they introduce as well. And I think that's the big thing with it. Look, this is a little public service announcement. People of Earth, you never have to side with popular opinion if you don't want to. So don't look at Rotten Tomatoes. Go out and see this movie on your own.
Yes.
And formulate your own opinion.
Yes.
Don't read Twitter and people saying like, oh, it sucks because of one little thing. Go and get the support this movie, give it your hard-earned dollars and see it and come to your own opinion about this film. Also, one thing I would just add is it's been a while since we've had a summer movie season where we've had 3 big movies come out, one right after the other, that are all fantastic and great to go see in the movies and have that movie going experience. So big ups to the House of the Mouse for providing a lot of these movies, but also it is fun and fantastic to see that the summer movie season is starting off really strong.
And are you counting Black Panther in that summer movie?
That came out in February. It was snowing.
I asked you that in person. You think you got upset with me? You got upset with me again. So, Mocha, some final thoughts of would you recommend people to watch this movie in your ranking of Han Solo, a Star Wars story with the first 6 Star Wars movies?
So, let me get right into the rankings. I'll start with that. This Star Wars Solo, a Star Wars story is pretty low on my overall ranking list. It goes Empire Strikes Back, Force Awakens, A New Hope.
Force Awakens is not part of the original 6.
Oh, you want to just talk about the original 6?
Yes.
Wait,
to be fair, that's kind of an impossible question. That's kind of a shenanigans question. They're all Star Wars.
Shenanigans.
It's not shenanigans. Answer the question.
So what? Why are we counting the prequels though if we're not going to count any of the other ones? Okay, so that means I can't even consider. Okay.
No, Mocha, you can totally.
The reason why is because I'm talking about the chronological order of it. That's why. And those 6 of now 7 are.
So you got to include Rogue One because Rogue One takes place in between Solo and A New Hope.
Sure. Sure, you can do that too. But just answer the question.
Okay, fine.
So here's Revenge of the Sith. Here's Rogue One. Here's Solo.
Yeah. So Empire Strikes Back, A New Hope, Rogue One, The Last Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, Return of the Jedi, then Solo, followed by Attack of the Clones and The Phantom Menace. Or rather, The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. Solo's pretty low down there on my list. However, I do want to say that I don't think it was a bad film, not by any stretch. I liked it. It was entertaining, and it was very, very okay, but not too much more than that, in my opinion. I did have fun watching it, and I think it's a great intro film for new or younger Star Wars fans to jump into the franchise with. It's a romp. It's action heavy. There's some like cleverness and fun to it. So I think it's a good jumping on point. But ultimately, it's pretty low on the rankings for me. Give me more Chewie. Give me Chewie a Star Wars story and let Han Solo show up somewhere. Story.
I like that he was like speaking Chewie. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. Also, like, shout out to this movie for showing off like how much of a horrifying badass Chewbacca is. Like, he is a warrior. He's always been a warrior. And seeing him covered in blood,
a guy's arms off.
Yeah, like he rips the guy's arms off in this film. He football tackles Han Solo through like a metal pipe. He was so cool in this movie. He picked the guy up in the air and slammed him right on his head. That dude definitely died of multiple neck fractures. Chewie was great in this movie. If anything, go see it for Chewie and make more movies that are just about Chewie with subtitles.
Blewett, why do you think people should watch this movie, and how would you rank the first 6 Star Wars movies with Solo?
Well, because you cut out, I don't understand what you're saying by 6, so I'm going to rank all of them. But me and Mocha are going to kind of agree on a lot of this. I heard a good one from a friend saying this was the greatest like average movie you'll ever watch. And I think I agree with that. Like I had a smile on the entire movie. And this was utterly forgettable. Like the whole time I was like, that's cool. I get that. And at the end of it, I walked out, I'm like, I don't remember a single thing that happened. Like there was no cool moments. There was just like I just had a fun time, and then just it's like doing go-karts. Like you have a fun time, you have a fun time doing it, but like I'm never going to go to my friends and be like, "Oh dude, I did go-karts." It's like, sure. Sure. You're 30 years old, you drive a car to work every single day. Like who cares about go-karts? And that was the Solo story for me. It was a go-karts movie. So I seriously, I am to Star Wars, at least at some points in my life, as to what Mocha is to Marvel. Like, I watched all 6 movies in one day, and we'd spend 20 hours on Wikipedia just Wikipediaing every little bit of Star Wars. Like, I knew that universe inside and out at some points in my life. And I wasn't excited to see this movie, and this movie didn't disappoint on disappointing me. Like, I walked out of it be like, I still don't care. The thesis of this movie did not matter. It was the most meh movie I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, it was better than Attack of the Clones. It's probably better than Phantom Menace, because that one scene where he goes, well, this is pod racing. That was where, like, that dropped that entire movie below Solo. But, like, no one asked for Solo, and it didn't deliver on something we didn't ask for.
I asked for Solo, but it did deliver.
Yeah, I did like Solo. I'll disagree with you there. But
save your money and go see Avengers again.
No,
I wonder.
Stop plugging. You're not saving your money if you go see Avengers again.
You're still giving it to the House of Mouse, but you're giving it to a better movie.
Guys, I wonder how much of our non-Brylan based takes on this film have to do with the fact that there were 3 or 4 different directors throughout the entire process of this film, reaching its completion.
There were 2.
There were some. I think there were 3.
Because there was one was
they count as 1.
Yeah,
and then there was Ron.
Yeah, it was 2.
Yeah,
and there was leaked some of the scenes that Lord and Miller filmed, and it sounds like that movie that if it came out, it would have been more wacky hijinks and more humor to it than it already had in this movie.
Interesting. I was wondering about that because, one of the things that stood out in this movie was the fact that a lot of the camera angles and camera usage was really just bland and just regular still shots that weren't too dynamic, except for the scene where Lando runs into the battle to tear apart L337's corpse. And he runs out and you get this really cool video game cutscene where it's a shaky camera that's following him as he's ducking below things and things are exploding around him, and he slides into L337. And I was like, whoa, where did this come from? And then nothing else like it happened again, camera work wise, throughout the movie. So I thought for a minute that maybe that was one of the scenes that were originally done. But if you were saying that,
I think they
were more wacky, then probably not.
I think they shot 80% of it over again. I think Ron Howard literally reshot 80% of this movie.
He had to reshoot 70% of it to get a director credit.
Yeah, so I think it was 80 in total. The whole character of Dryden Voss didn't exist in the original shoot.
He did. It was a different actor, though.
Yeah, it was also CGI.
It was Omar from The Wire.
Oh, right.
So they complete everything that is Paul Bettany is completely new.
Yep.
Interesting. So I would say I had a good time. I had fun with this movie. I was kind of underwhelmed, but at the same time, it wasn't a bad movie. Much like Mocha was talking about, I would definitely suggest people to go watch this movie because it was fun. Much like Bradley was talking about. I enjoyed it. I like some of the characterizations they made of it. I like a lot of the visuals. Even I know you guys shat on the Kessel Run, but I actually like that component. It was pretty cool to see the Millennium Falcon do some stuff that was just kind of interesting and entertaining. You can see more of the, you said this before, you see more of the personality because the Millennium Falcon started out as brand new. And it was awesome on the outside as well as the inside. And now if you fast forward to what it looks now, it looks absolutely terrible because that's Han's version of it. So I think that's pretty cool of the passing of the torch there. And I still think with this next film, the Millennium Falcon is going to get destroyed. It better happen because it has to happen. And I really hope it happens at one point. Yes, it has to happen. Oh. You have to kill everything that's old. Just get rid of everybody. Chewie's also going to die.
No, I will not listen to Kylo Ren.
Chewie's gonna die.
They really hate this ship.
Yeah. Chewie's gonna die, and I thought for the longest the Millennium Falcon is gonna split apart from trying to do something. And Chewie's gonna die while piloting the Millennium Falcon.
Chewie's gonna die because he's crushed by a moon, like he does in the comics, and that's the coolest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
That's not canonical anymore.
Yeah, but it should happen because that's amazing.
That's
he staves off the destruction of a planet by fucking push pressing a moon so that his friends can get off the planet on the other side of it. Like, that's the best thing ever.
That's Han Solo's son that kills him.
Han Solo has a son?
His other son from a different canonical universe.
We don't know that stuff. So I would rank so starting from bottom to top. It was tough because I have two number bottoms. Yeah.
That's so weird. 3 people just did top to bottom. Why are you still going to do bottom to top?
What did Brylan say earlier? Don't listen to everybody. Have your own opinion.
The fact
and
that
so that's
Warren
what I'm
has
gonna
2
do.
bottom bitches is kind of amazing.
I know, bro. So both bottom bitches, because I hate both of these movies, was episode 1 and 2. Those are trash, and those are gonna stay down.
But which one is worse for you? Which one is at the very bottom?
After that, so also pretty terrible, but manageable. After that, I would say Solo, Star Wars movie, but there's a huge gap in between there. And then I would say A New Hope, Empire. Sorry, A New Hope, Return of the Jedi, Empire, and Rogue One.
Oh, where's Revenge of the Sith on there?
That was number 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
because you said your bottom, your two bottoms
shitty,
and then you said Solo.
No, episode 3. No,
with big gap. Okay,
episode 3. Yeah, so the bottom bitches, then episode 3, huge gap, Solo, then New Hope, Return, Empire, Rogue One. And with that, we are the Down in Front Podcast. Thanks for hanging out and checking in for a full review of Solo, A Star Wars Story. Brylan, where can people find more of your work?
You can find me defending my ground and standing my ground and defending my honor on this movie on Twitter at Brylan, BRILUND. I'll also be editing a cut of this movie where Ron Howard's narrating it in a quirky way for Mike Blewett. I'll also post many movie reviews on Instagram from time to time at I am Bryland. I'm also the host of the Games Cast. It'll be coming back very soon, sooner than you expect it, at twitch.tv/Down in Front Podcast. And I think that's everything that I do.
Hey, Mocha, where can we find more of your work?
Yeah, you can find me writing out tweets that are less than 280 parsecs long at Twitter at MochaMikeLI, as the Lord intended. Unfortunately, it's not at MochaMike because the person who has that username got sucked into a black hole skin first, and now I can't get access to it. So instead, you'll find me at MochaMikeLI. You can also find me on Instagram at MochaMike, where I post some of my photography work, and at Medium at MochaMike, where I write longer form reviews of the stuff we talk about here.
And the Shredder, Blewett, where can you find more of your work, and what show do you have coming up soon?
We got nothing good. It's all terrible. We're stupid, and we're a butt joke. So anyways, but you can also check us out at Jesse Rand, A Solo Story on livejasmine.com.
Jesse Rand's Love Life, A Solo Story.
Again, go to livejasmine.com and then type in Jesse Rand, A Solo Story. It will not disappoint.
Man.
Yeah, that's all I got. I had something for Brown, but I forgot what you said, so.
The witty narration of Ron Howard.
Oh, yeah. So I just, that's totally it. I just wish they had one little part where Han Solo just goes, I like those odds. And the narrator goes, he shouldn't have. And then.
Yeah. Or Han Solo at the end said, I'm ready for a new start. And then he zoom in on the back of the Millennium Falcon.
Just anus tart. Yeah.
And we are the Down in Front Podcast, official podcast of downinfrontpodcast.com. Definitely go there, check out more of our work. You know, we can definitely email us. We have a new email, the crew at downinfrontpodcast.com. You can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Reddit, just about any and every sort of social media site as well. Just check us out. It's under downinfrontpodcast.com along with kind of the YouTube. If you definitely want to help us out, continue to help us with fees and watching videos and watching movies and kind of putting out more and more information as we do right now in all of our recordings, become a patron. It's pretty cool. You can hang out with us. You can join us on Discord, where we're talking about other newer movies that's happened. We have early episodes for our patrons, as well as kind of like bonus stuff that's only going to be for patrons. So check that out on patreon.com/downandfrontpodcast. And we will say thank you for everybody so much. And of course, when you join the Down and Front podcast, make sure you watch the movie, you grab a drink, you join the pod. Good night.